There's still leaks coming out of that HomePod firmware update because apparently everything mankind ever needed was hidden within this one firmware update. And we're finding out that my theory about the Apple Watch having LTE support is actually coming true. I heard that originally they wanted to put LTE support in the Series 2, but at the last minute something went wrong. So they said, dang it, guess we'll catch up on the next one. And that's obviously what they're doing. So apparently that technology was ready a while ago, but some last minute malfunction made it not available on the Series 2. So they're implementing it into the Series 3 based on some firmware update code that says Gizmo LTE support, and Gizmo is apparently the code word for Apple Watch, and it's not a very good code word because everyone knows what it is. But the other rumor that was recently reported on, but actually doesn't have that much evidence to back it up because we don't know who this person is crediting or why they think this. It's literally just one of those people going, maybe this'll happen, and it's getting a lot of people riled up. So I'm saying, hey, calm down for a second. This leak is that the Apple Watch will actually have a different form factor for the first time. You know, given the Series 2 actually does look slightly different. It's a different glass panel. The Apple Watch Series 2 is slightly wider. It has two microphones on the side. The ceramic circles on the back look a little bit differently from the Series 1 and first generation Apple Watch. So very minute changes, and I was expecting that with the Apple Watch Series 3, we'd be getting internal upgrades, you know, like the cellular support and a bigger battery, and hopefully smart bands so that we could have expanded battery life, glucose monitoring via buying bands that actually have components in them that can add functionality to your watch. Now the rumor is that the shape of the watch will actually be changing, and a lot of people are saying now Apple's gonna make a circular Apple Watch finally, a watch that really looks like a watch, because watches are only circular. That's the only kind of watch that's ever existed. Come on, we've had square watches for a while, people. It's not just a smartwatch thing. They've been around for decades now. Anyway, I'm here to tell you why I think it's a bad idea to have a circular Apple Watch. And keep in mind, I have tested multiple smartwatches in the past that were circular, both the Gear S2 as well as the Huawei watch, and both of them were cool watches that looked good, but I'll have to remind everyone that I think a round smartwatch allows for a pretty realistic looking watch face that kind of blends into what modern watches look like today. However, it is not as friendly to the smart part of the smartwatch. So obviously the only reason people are interested in round smartwatches is because most watches are round. The reason most watches are round is because there's gears in them that are spinning, allowing for those hands to move, allowing you to keep track of time. Now obviously, because we're moving to digital smartwatches now that have batteries and computers and even dedicated GPUs and built-in GPS, like in mine, a lot of GPs, we don't need those gears anymore, right? So the idea of keeping around the round smartwatch, that was bad, I apologize, is really just a novelty thing. It's kind of like saying, this is the way this industry has been, so let's continue that tradition on because for some reason round watches might look better to some people. I've read your comments, I know who you are. You think round watches look better than square ones? Fine, just an opinion, you're welcome to be wrong. But if you take a look at watchOS, you realize why things have been measured very carefully, as in the watch is not a perfect square, as a lot of people thought it would be, but this allows for very specific watch faces. So some people like to have a photo with the time on the bottom or the time on the top, which of course with watchOS that is allowed. But also if someone wants a round watch face with regular old ticking hands, they have that option. But because the screen resolution of the Apple Watch is not a perfect square, it's more of a tall rectangle, it allows for people to add widgets in the corners, whether it be battery life, activity rings, the date, the weather. I think Apple really thought about why they wanted to go with this format of a screen, and it's been working great for them for the past 3 years, I think it's been. But as soon as you want to get into the smart part of the smartwatch, that means texting people, that means monitoring your activity, that means looking up people who you can call. The round screen starts to be rather limiting, because if you were to take a piece of paper, cut it out into a perfect circle, layer it on top of the Apple Watch, you realize that when you have nothing but round edges, when you're reading texts or when you're trying to interactively respond to calls, those round edges actually cut off more menus, and they mean that you have to redesign the operating system for it to be friendly, or you have to make all of the text and all of the titles and all of the bars that you touch when you're using watchOS a lot smaller. This was a long time ago, but when I reviewed the Huawei watch, which if you didn't know was a circle, the menus had to be very crunched in, because if the text was blown up to its full size of edge-to-edge screen like it is on the Apple Watch, you know, since that is a square, you can fit the text perfectly along every edge, whether it be on the bottom or whether it be on the top. When you're working with a round smartwatch, the focus of whatever you want people to look at has to be directly in the middle. That's the only way you can get text, sentences, and notifications to be straight across and remain legible. All the other menus, all the other options have to be either designed more carefully, so instead of having menus scroll up and down like they do on your phone and your Apple Watch, if you have a round smartwatch, you now have to curve everything a little bit. If you expect people to be able to read every single button, navigation, navigation menu. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. When someone texts me, the first thing I see is what the notification is from. It shows the messages icon, but it is able to show the icon and underneath it say message because the screen is a rectangle. It doesn't have to scrunch into a screen or be cut off in any way. Then once it tells me what that notification is, it lifts up, and then at the top of the screen, it says who sent this message. And then of course, underneath it, it says what that message is, which because the screen is a rectangle, we can fit multiple sentences in a line, stretching from edge to edge on the screen, and not having to scrunch things down so that you can read all of it, making the text smaller and harder to read on such a small display. And on top of reading that message, you want the options of how to respond. Some people want to dictate, some people want to scribble, some people want to send an emoji. Underneath the message they sent, we have all of those options that, of course, are stretching from end to end. That way the text can be big, you can read it just fine. And again, if Apple was to make that switch to a round smartwatch, you wouldn't be able to display as much content. And that's even if you made the watch bigger. Even if you made it like the size of the Gear S3 and you made a round smartwatch that could engulf the entire 42mm Apple Watch. First of all, Apple wouldn't like that because they like things to be small, light, and portable. You know, the next iPhone's gonna be smaller than the iPhone I have now because they're in favor of making things less intrusive. But even if they did make that smartwatch, you couldn't display as much information. You know, that's why we read books on pieces of paper. They are square. If we tried to build a book into a round object, it would be much harder to build into. You could not fit as much content. So that's why the Apple Watch screen is a square. It's so that they can maximize real estate space. And even though, yes, there's a lot of circles throughout watchOS, you know, the app layout on the home screen, a lot of circles, of course, the activity rings, that's a big circle. So I understand your fascination with having a round smartwatch because it seems like so much of watchOS is in favor of being a circle, but I still think you have that option of having a roundish looking watch face because Apple has all these built-in options like the kaleidoscope watch face, the utility watch face that show how, you know, you can still have ticking hands on a smartwatch. So if you have a square screen, you can still support a round watch face. The difference here though is I think if you have a round watch with a round display, you cannot as easily support the smartwatch features that are delivering notifications and tracking your activity because, you know, you can see your activity rings when you go into the activity app, but when you want to see more information, you scroll down with that digital crown and you now have a bar graph, which would not be as easily displayed on a round watch face because that prime area of the watch where people can actually see what's on it is right dead in that middle column. You can't really expand that as much because text will get cut off. That's why I'm anticipating Apple is not making a round smartwatch. Now, form factor, of course, for the Series 3 could be different, as this guy has reported, but that can mean a lot of different things. First of all, it could just mean that the watch is thinner. Maybe they made it thinner, or maybe to expand the battery life, the Apple Watch has a bigger form factor now. I'm thinking maybe they got rid of that rounded back, that oval shape that you attach your charger to, because maybe they want to make a wireless charger for the iPhone 8 that also supports the Apple Watch Series 3, so it needs to be flat. Perhaps that's what we're talking about when we're saying new form factor. Oh, and the last reason that they probably wouldn't switch to round smartwatches, they'd have to introduce a whole new line of watch bands. All of my old watch bands, I have a lot of them, would not fit onto a round smartwatch very easily unless they did some kind of design trick, which I really hope they're not interested in changing the format of watch bands connecting. I hope they keep that for as long as possible. Plus, the Apple Watch could get a lot thinner and still retain that watch band attachment style. It's very easy to exchange them out, very easy to put them in. I like it that way. Let's keep it that way, Apple. But of course, let me know all your thoughts on a round smartwatch. Is this a good idea or a bad idea? Any points I've left out? Let me know in the comments below. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you in the next one.